Ever wondered how your eyes can track a fast moving object without losing a beat? Because the truth is, your eyes move so effortlessly, but what's doing a heavy job behind the scene? What's doing a heavy lifting behind the scenes? It is time to pull back the curtains of the recti muscles. What's up, fellas? Welcome back to Neurosketch, and this is Dr. Kenny. In the previous discussion, we discussed about the introduction to the occipital muscles. Of course, we did two muscles. We did the levator palpebral superioris and the Mueller's muscle. The superior tarsus muscle. So today we are discussing about the recti muscles, the straight muscles of the eye, So why are they called recti? Because they are straight. Remember, we had rectus abdominis, the straight muscles of the abdomen, and we had at times we had the rectus femoris, the straight muscle of the femur, or of the thigh. So the recti muscles, they are straight muscles. So how many straight muscles do we have? We have 4 straight muscles. So we have, and they are named with respect to the position that they they attach on the eye, on the sclera of the eyeball, So we have the superior rectus because it is attached on the superior aspect of the sclera of the eyeball, and you know that they attach themselves to the sclera, but just behind the corneal scleral junction. So we have the junction between cornea and the sclera, and this muscle, they attach that just behind, just posterior to this junction. So the superior rectus will go on the superior part, the inferior rectus will be on the inferior part. So we have the medial rectus, which will be on the medial side, and assume this is the left eye, so it will be on the medial side, and then the lateral rectus will be on the lateral aspect. So all these recti muscles, all these 4 muscles, they come from a common origin, and then this origin is known as the common tendinous ring. And as I've told you, they insert themselves in the sclera of the eyeball. What about the innervation of the recti muscles? We go back to square one. We go back to this formula because we know that the superior oblique, which is not the recti now, so it's out of equation. So the lateral rectus will be supplied by the abducens nerve, which is cranial nerve number 6, and all other recti muscles, superior, inferior, and medial, they will be innervated by the oculomotor nerve, which is cranial nerve number 3. So let's take a look on this common tendinous ring of Zinn, the common origin of this recti muscle, So number one, the origin of the of this muscle, it is a common tendinous ring, or it's called the ring of Zinn. The common tendinous ring, or ring of Zinn. So all the 4 recti muscle, they have common origin here. So one we go on the lateral side, one will go on the medial side, one will go on the upper part on superior side, and the other one will go on the inferior side. So all these, they form the 4 recti muscle, the 4 straight muscles of the eye, So let's take a look one after another. So we have 4 recti muscles, and let's start now with the medial and lateral rectus. So I'll tell you something simple to grasp at this point is that the point of insertion of these muscles, they define the actions of this muscle, at least the primary actions of these muscles, So just because the superior rectus is inserted at this superior part. So contraction of the superior rectus will result into elevation of the eyeball. So elevation of the eyeball, and because the inferior rectus is on the inferior surface, so on the inferior aspect, so the contraction of the inferior rectus will result into depression. Same applies because the medial rectus, it is on the medial aspect, so contraction of the medial rectus will result into medial movement, which is adduction because we are moving towards the midline. So the medial rectus will adduct the eye, and the lateral rectus, because on the lateral surface, it will abduct the eye. So the lateral rectus will do abduction, the medial rectus will do adduction. But what about the origin? We have said we have common origin, and then they all originate from the common tendinous ring of the ring of Zinn. Common tendinous ring of the ring of Zinn. The insertion, it is perfectly clear, and now the action, the lateral rectus will do abduction, so abduction or abduction, and then the medial rectus will do adduction. It adds to the midline, adduction. Now, what about the innervation? The innervation, we know that the lateral rectus, it is innervated. The lateral rectus, it is innervated by cranial nerve number 6, which is abducens nerve, and see now it abducts, so the nerve will be abducens nerve. So abducens nerve, it is for abduction, and it supplies the lateral rectus. It supplies the lateral rectus, that is abducens nerve. What about the medial rectus? The way you find the medial rectus in the formula, so we have superior oblique by 4, the lateral rectus by 6. All other nerves, all other muscles, they are innervated by oculomotor nerve. So the medial rectus is no different, and it is innervated by the oculomotor nerve, which is cranial nerve number 3. Cranial nerve number 3. Is there any confusion pertaining the medial and lateral rectus? So they are crystal clear. They I don't need to say anything. So let's move to the superior and inferior recti. Yeah, because the superior rectus, it is inserted on the superior aspect, on the superior portion. So the superior rectus, it will elevate. It will elevate the upward movement, elevation of the eyeball. And then the inferior rectus, just because it's on the inferior side, it will depress. So contraction of the inferior rectus, it will result into depression of the eyeball. But the superior and the inferior rectus muscles, they are not really straight. Oh, Kenny, you've just told us the rectus means straight, and how you saying they are not straight? Of course, I told you, fellas, but I won't change what I told you. Like the recti means straight, and of course these muscles are straight, but they are not really perfect straight muscles. They are not perfect straight muscles. They make an angle. So take a look at this picture. So here is how our eyes are organized. So this is the eye, and these are the muscles. So every eye has got an optical axis. So this is the optical axis, like I think it makes sense. The optical axis, like the straight axis through your eye. So this is the optical axis. So the optical axis, passes, straight through the eye. And then you see this muscle. The muscle, this is superior rectus. The superior rectus, it is not really following this. It's not really following the axis, the optical axis. Instead, it makes an angle. So it makes an angle with the optic axis. So it makes an angle, and this angle complicates everything. So we used to think. I told you, like, they are recti muscles, then they will do elevation and depression, but because of this angle, everything changes. Of course, the first thing that you will do this muscle, they will elevate the eyeball, and the inferior rectus will depress. But everything is now complicated. Everything is complicated because of the angle that is formed to make your life miserable. So see here, Because of this angle that is formed, it complicates your the movement of these muscles, the superior and inferior rectus. So the superior and inferior rectus muscle, they are not really perfect straight muscles because they make an angle, they insert through an angle. So they insert themselves through an angle, and this angle complicates everything. Have I made myself clear? Because if you think they are perfect straight, and then you're gonna miss some of the movement of these muscles. Yeah, so so just because they insert through an angle, so the movement will not only be the elevation and the depression respectively. Let's go to the superior rectus. So see the superior rectus here. So the superior rectus, it was supposed to be straight up. Right? Superior rectus means the superior straight. So the up straight muscle, but it is not a straight. It is called the straight muscle to differentiate it from the oblique muscle, because these two muscles, see, this one is the inferior oblique, this is the superior oblique. They are really oblique, right? They make a large angle. They make the large I don't know, a significant angle. This one, the superior rectus and the inferior rectus, of course, they are not straight, but they make an angle of about 23 degrees. So it is this superior rectus, instead of going straight upward, it goes a little bit to the medial. Same applies to the inferior rectus. Instead of going straight inferior, it goes a little bit on the medial side. So they make like a medial turning. See here. So this one, instead of being perfectly straight for this optical axis, they make an angle. So let's see the movement of this eye. So contraction of this superior rectus, it will result to elevation of the eyeball, but not only elevation, because it's twisted through the angle. This eye will be pulled towards the medial side, because this superior rectus goes to the medial side. So the eye will, number one, be pulled upward. Of course, that's perfect clear, but it will also be pulled toward the medial side. We'll have adduction. So we'll have adduction by the superior rectus muscle. So the superior rectus muscle will also result into adduction, adding to the midline. Same applies to the inferior rectus. See, the inferior rectus is also goes to the medial side. So contraction of the inferior rectus, of course, number one, it will result into depression of the eyeball, but the eyeball will be pushed toward, pulled toward the midline. So we have also adduction by the inferior rectus muscle. Are we clear, guys? Because I'm trying to take it slowly for you to absorb it. Yeah. So we don't have only one actions by the superior and inferior rectus. So we have seen the primary actions, which is elevation and the depression, but we have the secondary actions and tertiary actions. Okay, so that's not only thing that this muscle will do. So that's not the only mystery that they will complicate your life. Assume now this is the globe. Assume this is the globe. Let me use this one. Assume now this is the globe. So superior rectus muscle will elevate the eyeball. Of course, it will elevate the eyeball, but it will adduct. It will adduct, moving towards the midline. But that's not the only thing that it do. It will rotate. It will rotate it medially. It will rotate, and this rotation is what is known the intorsion. So that's not the only thing that this muscle do. So the superior rectus will also do the intorsion, movement of inward. So see the three movements that are made by superior rectus muscles. Number one is elevation of the eyeball. Number two is medial rotation, is adduction, and number three is intorsion, the medial rotation. Is it clear? So elevation, superior rectus muscle, elevation, adduction, and the medial rotation. Elevation, adduction, and the medial rotation. What about the inferior rectus muscle? Of course, the inferior rectus muscle will do depression, adduction, and lateral rotation. So the inferior rectus muscle will do depression. Number one, you've already seen, but because it goes to the midline, it will adduct. But by pulling on this side, the eye will move. Will move like laterally. So that's what we call extortion. Okay, so this is intorsion. Look how intorsion occurs. And pay attention. Attention at this 12 o'clock position. The 12 o'clock position. If the 12 o'clock position moves medially. If the 12 o'clock position moves medially, that we call the intorsion. Like if this part goes on this side, that is intorsion. But if the 12 o'clock position moves laterally, that is extorsion. So pay attention to intorsion. Look. So that is intorsion. The eyeball moves medially. So it's like so if I'm using two eyeballs, the intorsion will be this movement. So the 12 o'clock position move medial. Guys, the 12 o'clock position, look at the 12, assume this middle finger, the 12 o'clock position, this is, so if they move medial, that is intorsion. But if the 12 o'clock position move laterally, that is extorsion. So you have already seen. Okay, let me take you back. Okay, so pay attention to the intorsion. So that is intorsion. The eyeball moves medially. And then pay attention now. I want to take you back to extorsion. So pay attention to the 12 o'clock position. How does it move? If it moves laterally, that is extorsion. If it moves medially, that is intorsion. So pay attention to the 12 o'clock, and that is extorsion. Look. Yes, so the eyeball rotates in this axis. So you have, this is the axis, this is the axis, and then it rotates either medially or laterally. So you pay attention to the 12 o'clock position. If it goes medially, that is intorsion, and if it goes laterally, that is extorsion. Yeah, so So let's go back now. Let's discuss to summarize the superior and inferior recti muscles. So we have two muscles, superior rectus and inferior rectus. They have common origin, and the origin is from common tendinous ring of Zinn, But insertion, of course, the insertion is clear because one is inserted on the superior aspect and one is inserted on the inferior aspect. So the superior rectus, it is innervated. You go back to the formula. This is superior oblique, don't confuse. So superior rectus, it is found under others, and the others are supplied by oculomotor nerve, which is cranial nerve number 3. But the inferior rectus muscle, it is found on the inferior surface, inferior aspect, and it is innervated by the oculomotor nerve because it also found on under others 3. And then the action of the superior rectus now, number one will be elevation. So it will be elevation of the upper rib, elevation of the eyeball. Number one, elevation of the eyeball. Number two, this is the primary action. The secondary action of the superior rectus will be intorsion. So intorsion is the secondary action of the superior rectus. And then number 3 will be adduction. You remember. So number 1, elevation, intorsion, adduction. Elevation, intorsion, adduction. So that's superior rectus. The inferior rectus, number 1 action will be depression of the eyeball. That's clear. Number 2 will be the extorsion. Sorry, I started with number 3, but number 2 will be the extorsion because, this is the secondary action of the inferior rectus muscle. And then number 3 will be adduction. So both superior and inferior rectus muscle, they adduct the eyeball. But one is moving, one is, extort, does the extorsion, and the other one does the intorsion. So the extorsion is also known as the lateral rotation, but the intorsion is known as the medial rotation. So I think I have made myself crystal clear. About the superior and the inferior rectus muscle. So just one thing that I've already emphasized in the previous video, in the previous slides, because this muscle they insert through an angle, and we know that this is the optical axis. So this is the optical axis, and they insert through an angle, and same applies on the other side. So the angle that is formed, it is 23 degrees, and this angle, as I've told you, is the thing that is the only thing that has complicated our lives up to this point. Otherwise, if we wouldn't have this angle, we would have just elevation and depression. But because of the angle, everything changes, and we dive into the, you know, intorsion and extorsion and all that. So what if I remove this angle? You know, I'm thinking of taking out the angle. What do you guys think? Should we take the angle out? Yes, because if you want to take the angle out, if you want to remove the angle, the more out of the equation, this angle, what you do is to make the visual axis, it is to make the optical axis align with the muscle, or to make the muscle align with the optical axis. See, I'm not trying to confuse you. I'm trying to make sense of something very important that you understand it shortly. Because this is the optical axis. This is the optical axis, and the muscle goes in this direction. So I want to align this muscle with the optical axis. So what I will do is I will move this eyeball, I will move the pupil to align to the muscle. So what will I do? I will have to look laterally. I will have to abduct my eye. So when I abduct my eye, I will make the muscle, the superior rectus muscle and the inferior rectus muscle, and the optical axis or the visual axis align together. Having done so, I have removed the angle. So there is no angle at this point. Look, at this point I have no angle because you need to understand what the optical axis is. So this is the optical axis through the fovea centralis. And remember, that's now, this is why I've told you, I've been insisting you to watch the previous part, the retina and all that, because it is a kind of continuation. If you understand that concept, it's easy for you to absorb this one. So so this is the optical axis, and it is through the fovea centralis, and then this is the muscle. So what I want to do here is to align these muscles, the muscle with the optical axis. So if I turn my eye laterally, and remember why we move our eyes, so remember, we go back to the discussion why we move our eyes. So if I turn it laterally, it aligns. So the muscle at this point, when the eye is abducted, the optic axis coincides with the axis through the muscle. So at this point, an abducted eye at 23 degrees, the superior rectus and the inferior rectus will have only one function, because at this point the superior rectus will be perfect recti. It will be a perfect straight muscle, no discussion. At this point, the superior rectus muscle will be a perfect straight muscle. So if it is a perfect straight, what does it do? It just does elevation only. And if it's inferior, a perfect inferior, a perfect recti, the perfect straight inferior, it will just do depression. This is the reason they tell you, if you want to check for the superior rectus muscle, you will have to abduct your eyes and move upward. So by abducting your eyes, you are killing the angle. You are removing the angle between the optical axis and the axis through the muscle. So the muscle becomes perfect straight. the muscle becomes perfect straight. So that, and at this point, the superior rectus will only do elevation, the inferior rectus will only do depression. And I will add something also. At this point is the only one muscle that will elevate the eyeball, and that will be superior rectus. And there is only one muscle that will depress the eyeball, and that will be the inferior rectus. Let me tell you something, guys, that I haven't mentioned yet, and I thought I mentioned it. you know, we have a pairs of extraocular muscles. We have like 6 pairs, 7 pairs, as we mentioned the other time. But all these muscles work together. There's no any single muscle that acts alone to do any specific kind of movement. So you see, if it's elevation, we see other muscle that will do elevation. But if it's adduction, we've already seen the medial rectus does adduction. But we also see that the superior rectus does adduction and the inferior rectus does adduction. If it is lateral rotation, we see other muscles that will do the lateral rotation. So there is no any single muscle that can act along to bring a desired movement of the eye. So they work as a team. So it is a teamwork. But at the point you want to test, you want to check which muscles has got a damage or which muscles have got a weakness. So what you do, you have a specific test. You have to kill the action of all other muscles, and that will be a separate discussion, of course. But you have to kill the action of all other muscles. And for these two muscles, the superior rectus and inferior rectus, you will have to abduct your eye so that you kill the angle and then you execute the movement that you want. I know I know you think I am trying to complicate your life, but I am not trying to complicate your life. Okay, so let's see the nerves, as we already discussed. We have discussed already, like you have the all these muscles are supplied by oculomotor nerve. I mean the superior rectus and the inferior rectus, and this is the superior rectus here. You can see it is supplied by the superior division of the oculomotor nerve. Remember, we also said the levator palpebral superioris will be supplied by the superior division of the oculomotor nerve, but the inferior rectus, this is the inferior rectus muscle, it is supplied by the inferior division of the oculomotor nerve. So the oculomotor nerve, we said it has two divisions, superior division and inferior division. The superior division will supply two muscles, the levator palpebral superioris and the superior rectus. The inferior division will supply the inferior rectus, which is the point of discussion today, but also the inferior oblique, as well as the medial rectus muscle. So guys, this is it about the discussion of the recti muscle. The recti muscle, they are so intimidating. But I'm here to make it easy for you, and I think I have tried my best to make it easy for you. And at this point, we can call it a day. And then we will have a discussion on the oblique muscles, and we have the separate discussions of the oculomotor pars, the trochlear nerve pars, and the abducens pars. And so what you need to do is to subscribe and stay tuned. Until next time, stay curious, and thank you for watching.